Hello, everyone. I hope you're staying healthy and social distancing. We're going to be starting our lab class with this video today, and we are going to be working on the heart. So, if you look, I have our list up here, and we're going to be going through the heart, and I'm going to try and treat this just as much like our lab class as I possibly can. Obviously, we don't have the models, but I will put a link to a video that another professor, Dr. Shea, posted where she actually shows you some of the models and you can look at those. So check out that link in D2L. But let's get started here. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cover the different layers of the heart. So if you look, we have 3 layers of our heart: epicardium, endocardium, and myocardium. And the heart is wrapped in a bag called the pericardium, or pericardial sac. So I'm going to switch to a picture here, and I want to show you the different layers of the heart. Now, the outside of the heart, this area right here, is this bag that covers the heart. It's called the pericardium. So I'm going to circle the pericardium. Then we have 3 layers of the heart: the epicardium, the myocardium, and the endocardium. The epicardium is the outside surface of the heart. All right, the pericardium is up against the epicardium of the heart. Epi means surface, so this is the surface of the heart. The myocardium is this muscular layer. Right? Myo means muscle, so it's the muscle heart, myocardium. So the myocardium is the muscular layer of the heart. And then on the inside, all of the structures on the inside, the inside of the valves, the chamber, is all called the endocardium. So the endocardium, endo means inside. So we have these 3 layers of the heart. So that's pretty easy, and hopefully you won't have any trouble with that. All right, so that takes care of the first part of our list. Okay, now let's look at the structures of the heart. So this is our entire list here, and I always find it easier to look at the heart from a standpoint of blood flow. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow blood flow through the heart, and if you are in my lecture class, this will be a review for you because we've already done this in the lecture. But I'm going to go to a new picture here that is the heart itself. And we're going to be looking at the different parts of the heart via blood flow. Now, about 85% of the list is just following this blood flow through the heart. So the first thing that we're going to do is we want to divide the heart up into left and right. But remember that the picture here is a heart that's facing you. So left and right are switched, because this is the left and right of the heart. It's not your left and right. So this is the right side, all right, and this is the left side. It's easy to remember in diagrams like this because the right side of the heart's going to be blue and the left side of the heart's going to be red. This indicates the oxygen amount in the blood. Now, remember that blood is all red. So there's no blue blood and red blood. It's all red. These diagrams are going to make it easier for you, and the models in lab class are also color-coded this way to make it easier for anatomy students to learn the different blood vessels, okay? So you can use this as a guide, and there is an exception to this rule, but usually when we look at blue vessels, they're going to be veins, and red vessels are going to be arteries. There is one big exception to this that I'm going to talk about that actually deals right with the heart, and I'll get to that here in just a few minutes. But blue is going to indicate deoxygenated blood. Red's going to indicate oxygenated blood. So when we look at the heart is divided into 4 chambers. All right, and you can see they're divided by these valves right here that are white. These upper chambers are the atria. So we have atria here on the right side, and we have an atria here on the left side. Now, below these valves, we've got 2 other chambers called ventricles. So this ventricle on the right side, and then this ventricle on the left side. So they're just simply named left and right atrium on top and ventricle on the bottom. All right, so we've got these 4 chambers. All right, so here is our first chamber. Here is chamber number 2. Here is chamber number 3. And here is chamber number 4. All right. So on the right side, the upper chamber is the right atrium. All right. Right atrium. On the left side, it's the left atrium. Then the 2 lower chambers, we have the right, on the right side, we have the right ventricle. And then on the left side, we have the left ventricle. So those are the 4 chambers. Pretty simple. All right. Now, the way that blood flow moves through the heart, I'm going to delete this here, is blood comes in to the right side of the heart. You can see these arrows. So blood is going to come in through the superior vena cava on the top right and the inferior vena cava in the lower right. Now, where this blood goes is the right atrium. So blood is first entering the right atrium. All right. So blood goes through the right atrium, and then the blood is going to move from the right atrium through a valve into the right ventricle. All right. Then blood is going to move from the right ventricle out of the heart and to the lungs. Okay? Then blood is going to come from the lungs. The lungs are going to oxygenate the blood and then deliver the blood back to the heart from the lungs that now has oxygen. That's why this left side is red. So we're going to enter the left atrium. Then this oxygenated blood is going to move through a valve that we'll talk about here in a second into the left ventricle. And then from the left ventricle, the blood is going to move out to the body. All right? So the blood goes from the right atrium to the right ventricle, out to the lungs, back from the lungs back to the heart, to the left atrium, to the left ventricle, and then out to the body. All right? So that is how the blood moves through these chambers. All right? Now, in between each of these chambers, and in between the chamber and leaving the heart, are valves. All right? Now, the valve between our right atrium and our right ventricle is a valve called the tricuspid valve. All right? So the tricuspid valve is in between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Between the left atrium and left ventricle, we have another valve. It's called the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. I don't care. You can use either term, mitral or bicuspid. Now, I personally prefer bicuspid just because it matches, bicuspid. Sorry, I'm writing with my mouse, so, that's not the easiest thing. But it matches the tricuspid, all right? So you've got the tricuspid on the right and the bicuspid on the left. These are the valves that are between the atria and the ventricles. Now, collectively, I guess I could do this. Collectively, these valves are called atrioventricular valves. Atrioventricular valves. All right? And so these atrioventricular valves are between the atria and the ventricles. Pretty cool. Okay, so that kind of takes care of these valves. But then we've got another set of valves that allow blood to leave the heart. So on the right side, blood in the right ventricle is going to leave the heart through a valve right here called the pulmonary valve. So this pulmonary valve allows blood to leave the right ventricle and go to the lungs. On the other side, we've got another valve that allows blood to leave the left ventricle and go into the aorta. It's right here, and it's called the aortic valve. Now, these valves are known as semi-lunar valves. Semi-lunar valves. And semi-lunar valves allow blood to move away from the heart, out to the lungs on the right side, and out to the body on the left side. So, I'm going to erase all this, and we're going to follow the blood flow through the heart using the chambers and the valves. All right, so let me get my brush up here one more time. All right. Okay, so blood's going to come down from the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, and it's going to dump into the right atrium. The right atrium then contracts and pumps blood through this tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The right ventricle then contracts and pumps blood out of the pulmonary valve to the pulmonary trunk and out to the lungs. Lungs. All right. Now the lungs are going to oxygenate the blood and send that blood back to the heart to the left atrium. The left atrium is going to then contract, pump blood through this valve here called the bicuspid or mitral valve. I still like bicuspid better. Let's see if I can spell it. Bicuspid. All right. So blood goes from the left atrium through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle. Then finally, blood's going to go from the left ventricle out this aortic valve to the aorta and then out to the body. So that is how blood flows through the heart. All right. Now, we've covered already a lot of these vocabulary lists that you have to know. All right, so we've covered the 4 chambers and we've covered the 4 valves. All right. Now, just to add a few things that the list has, the name of the blood vessel that allows blood to go from the heart to the lungs. So when the right ventricle pumps blood through the pulmonary valve, to the pulmonary trunk, these guys that branch, see how they branch? They go to the lungs. These are arteries, all right? So we have the left pulmonary artery that goes to the left lung, and we have the right pulmonary artery that goes to the right lung. Now, the definition of an artery is a blood vessel that moves away from the heart. So this is an artery because blood is moving away from the heart toward the lungs. All right? But unlike a typical artery that you would see somewhere else in your body, these arteries are carrying deoxygenated blood. Blood that is not saturated with oxygen yet. So they're blue. Most arteries in your body are going to be red because the blood is moving away from the heart and the heart is pumping blood that has oxygen to your body. This is an exception here. So these pulmonary arteries are blue. Now the lungs are going to oxygenate the blood. All right? And then the blood that's oxygenated is going to return to the heart via pulmonary veins. So this right here are the left pulmonary veins. And then we've got a lung over here on the right side. And it's going to pump, the blood's going to move from this lung through the right pulmonary veins. And these pulmonary veins lead to the left atrium. All right? So this kind of completes the blood flow through the heart. So now we can put it all together. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to delete all of my marks and we're going to go through the blood flow one more time. All right? Okay, so here we go. So blood is going to come into the heart via the superior vena cava above and the inferior vena cava below. Blood's going to move into the right atrium. All right? The right atrium is going to contract, pump blood through this tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The right ventricle is then going to pump the blood out the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary trunk, which is the pulmonary arteries. So this branches into the left pulmonary artery and the right pulmonary artery. These pulmonary arteries go to the lungs. The lungs are going to oxygenate the blood. So the lungs oxygenate the blood, and then the blood moves from the lung through the pulmonary veins back to the heart. All right. Blood then enters the left atrium. Blood is then pumped from the left atrium through the bicuspid valve or mitral valve into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, blood is then pumped out the aortic valve into the aorta, where it goes to the body. All right, so that is blood flow through the heart. Now that takes care of a good chunk of our list. All right, so luckily, if you memorize the blood flow through the heart, you can identify a lot of the parts and pieces that are on our list. Now, there are a few things that are just kind of random on the list that we need to talk about. And we'll start with these valves. The atrioventricular valves, the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves, this diagram doesn't show it, but they have little strings that attach to the valve. And then from those strings, we've got these muscles that they attach to. Let's see if I can draw this a little bit. These muscles are part of the endocardium. Right? So you've got these muscles that are attaching to strings. Now, the strings are called chordae tendineae. All right? So the chordae tendineae are the strings that are attached to the atrioventricular valves. The chordae tendineae are then attached to a part of the endocardium known as the I just drew a blank. The papillary muscles. I'm sorry. Papillary muscles. All right, so you need to know these chordae tendineae and these papillary muscles. Watch that video from Dr. Shea, and she will show you these on a model. All right. Then we've got some other random things that we need to know. For example, let me get my brush back up here. If you notice, the heart kind of has a point to it. This point is called the apex. The apex is always in the lower left quadrant of the heart. So this pointy part of the heart is called the apex. And then if you notice, there's a big thick divider of myocardium that is between the two ventricles. That is known as the interventricular septum. So this is the interventricular septum. All right. So you need to know the apex, and you need to know the interventricular septum. Sometimes the interventricular septum will be just called the ventricular septum, but on your list it's known as the interventricular septum. So make sure that you know those. All right. And then I don't have a picture of it. I guess I probably should have thought this through a little bit more, but on the surface of the heart, you're going to have veins and arteries. All right. So I suppose what I could do is just type this in really quick. We'll go heart diagram. Oops. Heart diarrhea. That's nice. Diagram. All right, let's get a heart. I started typing it into Google and it came up as heart diarrhea. That's really beautiful. So who knew that, you never know what you're going to Google. I need an outer picture of this. Outer heart diagram. Okay, here we go. So that was kind of funny there. That made me laugh. Let's take this picture here. Okay, so I'm gonna add this into our picture here. Let me resize this a little bit. Let's go, I don't know, 200. Let's see how big that is. Okay, that's probably good enough. All right, so if you notice, there are valves, or not valves, there are blood vessels. I'm losing it now, man. I'm losing it. So there are valves. I said valves again. There are blood vessels that are on the surface of the heart. All right, let me get my brush up again here. So if you look, these are called coronary vessels. So all you have to know on the list here is that the red vessels that are on the surface of the heart are coronary arteries, and the blue vessels are coronary veins. So you need to be able to tell me the coronary artery and the coronary vein. All right, and then let's see if I can find the last little guy here. Geez, I guess I'm going to have to type her in here. So coronary sinus. All right, images. Oh yes, okay. Let's open up this. We will copy that bad boy. You have to forgive me. I've been making so many of these videos. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. So I'm improvising with this one. If you're in my lecture class, you've probably seen that I've posted like 25 videos. But on the back of the heart is a big vein. This big vein on the back of the heart is called the coronary sinus. So you need to know that as well. So I think that takes care of the heart. I think I covered all of the heart. At this point in time in lab, I'd say, hey, did I miss anything? But I don't think I did. I think I got everything on there. And so hopefully this will help you. Like I said, look at this, and then you can go to Dr. Shea's video on YouTube, check that out as well, and you'll get the heart right down. All right? Until the next video, stay healthy. All right, I'll see you all later. Take care.